Good morning, everybody, and a happy Friday morning to you. You guys are just not going to believe what has happened with Harry's court case. Unbelievable. Guys, there's a lot to cover in here, so let's just get busy because you're not going to believe it. Let's go. We're going to start off this morning with Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Gloucester. She was in Sheffield. She had two things she went to. First was a Music in the Round charity at a theater there, and her second visit was to Scissor Makers, where they presented her with a brooch that she pinned onto her jacket. A big thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what she was wearing. I love this woman. She's so graceful. Moving on, we have Duchess Sophie, who was in Alberta, Canada. They were the hosts for the Vice-Regal Conference. There were apparently 3 days of discussions of how to continue to work for the betterment of Canada. But Sophie was there on day one. I think she looks absolutely gorgeous. Let's move on now to King Charles. He had an audience with the President of the Republic of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema. That took place at Dumfries House in Scotland. Looking good there, Charles. Now, moving on to the Duke of Edinburgh. He joined sailors, veterans, and families celebrating, quote, the beating heart behind Royal Navy operations as the Royal Fleet Auxiliary marked its 120th birthday. Don't forget that Edward is the Commodore-in-Chief of the service, and he was the guest of honor at their Indispensable Supports Fleet Birthday event in Portsmouth. This event looked on the service's success. It thanked the sailors and their families for commitment on current operations and looked to the arrival of innovative new ships that will carry the service into the second half of the 21st century. Every serving member of the RFA will receive a specially cast memorial coin funded by the RFA's Central Benevolent Fund, which is administered by the Royal Navy and Royal Marines charity. Looking good, Edward. Let's keep moving. Let's go back now to King Charles. He was at Dumfries House. He had been meeting some of the King's Foundation's 35 under 35. That is the network of young creatives chosen by the charity to promote its areas of work in its 35th anniversary year and beyond. Now, this is really cool because the reception served as a showcasing event where the members could each show the king their innovations. And then each attendee placed their item into what's going to be the foundation's anniversary time capsule, which was launched by Charles in January, and it's going to be buried for 100 years in 2026. And so King Charles was able to actually look into the time capsule and see all the items that were going to be going in. They even had the royal cipher of the king on the lid. People there really seemed to be in, and one of the women there said she was very grateful to the King's Foundation for its unwavering support in protecting heritage crafts and creating sustainable pathways for future generations. Embroidery is one of humanity's oldest arts, with traces of decorative stitching found more than 30,000 years ago. So yeah, this looks like it was a complete success. Way to go, Charles. Way to go, everybody. Let's move on. All right, before we get into Catherine, I think a lot of people are really confused about the different roles that she has. So let's look at those. First of all, she is the Colonel of the Irish Guards, a role previously held by Prince William. Then she took it over as the Royal Honorary Air Commander of the RAF Coningsby, which is an appointment that William had. And then she became the new Colonel-in-Chief of the 1st Queen's Dragoon Guards, known as the Welsh Cavalry. This was carried out by Charles when he was Prince of Wales. Everything has been, shuffled around after Harry left. And the reason we're talking about this is because Catherine made her very first visit to the RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire. This took place on yesterday. She looked gorgeous in a gray business suit, a trouser suit, I guess you would call it, and navy stilettos. Man, those are some high heels. Now remember, as I just told you, she became the Royal Honorary Air Commodore of the base in 2023. She met personnel and their families. She got an overview of recent operations at the site. Now, her visit began with a private briefing from Group Captain Paul O'Grady, Station Commander, and Warrant Officer Nikki Nolan, the Station Warrant Officer, on the past 18 months of activity. Topics included the RAF's Corningsby involvement in Operation Shader in the Middle East and Operation Eastern Sentry, which is helping to boost NATO's presence along its eastern flank amid growing tensions with Russia. Now, at one point, she went to the Quick Reaction Alert hangar and viewed a Typhoon with one of its pilots, and she really looked engrossed. He pointed out the military hardware, the missiles attached below the wings, and she went up the stairs. And then she headed to the Typhoon Future Synthetic Training Facilities, where instructors invited her to step inside the simulator. And I just have to say, I don't think I've ever seen anybody go down steep stairs in stilettos that gracefully. And I love the fact that the guy stayed behind her just in case she lost her footing. That's so cool. Anyway, when she got into the simulator, she appeared to be able to do it really easy. And she actually did, they're saying, a loop the loop. They're saying she seemed a natural pilot, so they might have to get her qualified and get her up flying a Typhoon if she's up for it. Now, she did wear her RAF badge on her blazer. She chatted to some trainee pilots. You know, she's just very busy as she ran around. I just want to say she looked fabulous. She's looking healthy. I absolutely love it. Now, it wouldn't be a story if I didn't tell you about the children or the people's princess, that when she was leaving, she was seen by a group of young girls who were impressed with her attire. She looked at the one girl's adorable princess dress, and Catherine told the girls, "Where's mine? If only I had known. I'm sorry I didn't wear my dress today." Thank you for coming to see me. So, of course, Catherine is gushing over the little kids, and she didn't forget her own kids while she was, exploring the aircraft. She said that her children were going to be so jealous, and that Louis has dreams of becoming a fighter pilot. And I'm going to tell them it takes 8 years. It's a lot of hard work. But look at those kids. The little girl told Catherine she wore her princess dress for her. How adorable. Oh my God, I can't stand it. I just can't stand it. All right. A big thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what Catherine was wearing, and we're going to continue. And next up, we have Princess Anne, the Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. Some more pictures came out of Princess Anne being shown the rehabilitation of wounded defenders. I hope I say this right. She was actually at the Pusha Vatesia Medical Rehabilitation Center. Now, I really need to interject here for those of you who may not have caught it. I think the royal family does really good at subtlety, because remember, Harry's railing against the men in gray suits. But if you notice this week, from the Duchess of Gloucester, Catherine, King Charles, Prince William, and even Princess Anne in Ukraine, everybody was wearing gray. Subtlety, but sends a statement. Love it. All right, let's keep going. All right, this next article, I don't know what to make of this. There's a 2.3 mile perimeter around Catherine and William's new house. Okay, so just don't go within 2 miles of their house. Do you know how many acres there are in Great Windsor Park? But you have to go in the 2.3 mile exclusion zone. It's there so that the children can have privacy. They can go out. They don't have to worry about, having their pictures taken. So what's the problem? Just don't go within 2 miles. Jeez. All right, this next story is really sad. Dame Jane Goodall, 91 years old, passed away. She was a legendary conservationist. She died of natural causes. And Prince William praised her, quote, boundless curiosity, compassion, and pioneering spirit, saying that she inspired me and countless others to work to protect our planet. Dr. Goodall's death was put on, I don't know if it was on Instagram, but there was a post from the Jane Goodall Institute that read that she was a messenger of peace and founder of the Jane Goodall Institute, and that she had passed away. Her discoveries as an ethologist transformed science, and she was a tireless advocate for the protection and restoration of the natural world. And we know she was groundbreaking with her work with chimpanzees. I want you guys to know some of her accomplishments. She was awarded the Templeton Prize, the Stephen Hawking's Medal, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Kyoto Prize, the Tyler Prize for Environmental Achievement, the French Legion of Honor Award, the Benjamin Franklin Medal, the Prince of Asturias Award. These are just a few samples. In May, she was awarded a fellowship by the chair of the Science Museum, Sir Tim Lawrence, in recognition of her work as a conservationist and primatologist. Now, keep all that in mind when you look at the tribute put up by Harry and Meghan. I guarantee you this was all Meghan's writing. First of all, they start releasing all these pictures showing the two of them with her to prove that they knew her, they met her, and she was a friend. They called her a visionary humanitarian, a friend to the planet, a friend to us. Her commitment to changing lives extends well beyond what the world saw, but also to what we personally felt. She held our son Archie when he was first born and showered loving care to those who were privileged to know her. She will be deeply missed. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. They turned the whole thing to, instead of she was this, these are the awards, these are the things. It was all, she held our son. I tell you, Meghan frickin' wrote that herself. What idiots. All right, this story is stupid, but I wanted to throw it in here anyway. They're saying that Harry is struggling to repair a relationship with his family and still fulfill Meghan's wishes, so he's in a delicate position. I don't think it's delicate. You got to choose one or the other, dude. All right, here we go. Remember, Harry's court case against the Daily Mail is supposed to come up in January. Well, now, lawyers that are representing Harry and some of the other high-profile figures bringing these privacy lawsuits said on Wednesday that new evidence showed that Prince William and Catherine were also targets, as well as Elton John. They're all suing Associated Newspapers, A&L, but what I find shocking is that they're dragging William and Catherine into the lawsuit. William and Catherine settled this years ago. They took the money and they gave the money to charity. They don't want any part of this. Remember, we have 7 claimants, including Elton John's husband, David Furnish, and they all accuse A&L of activities like hacking their voicemails, burglary, obtaining their medical records by deception, and Frost, Furnish, and Hughes attended court on Wednesday for the hearing, and Harry, it's being said, was listening in remotely. And this, by the way, is the very first litigation where A&L is being dragged into the phone hacking scandal, which started like 20 freaking years ago, which led to a public inquiry into the ethics of the press. Now, since he's trying for a rapprochement with the royal family, it ain't looking good that he's dragging his brother into this lawsuit. It's not looking good for him. So what did Harry say? Well, it looks like he's blaming his own lawyer for doing that, insisting that he has no idea that his attorney, David Sherborne, was going to bring his brother into the proceedings. Are you kidding me? There's absolutely no way that David Sherborne would have done that without Harry's approval. Knowing that this is going to kill the reconciliation with his family, can you imagine trying to distance yourself from your own high-profile lawyer? A source said that Harry was not aware of the evidence presented as part of the general claim. He's not responsible for the arguments, evidence gathered and presented in disclosure or comments made by his barrister. Oh my God. I wonder what the king will think about Harry's attempts to mislead the High Court and cheat the legal system. Now, personally, I think he did it to give his case more credibility, especially with what just came out. Now, in the meantime, Harry's case is not looking good because legal researchers working for Prince Harry and others, it's now come out, hatched a camouflage scheme to mislead the High Court in the very trial they're bringing against the Daily Mail. That came out in the hearing. Damning emails involving fellow claimant Sir Simon Hughes, who, by the way, is the former president of the Lib Dems, shows discussions about how to cheat the legal system. Actress Sadie Frost also faced questions about whether she misled the court. Oh my God, this all came out during the preliminary hearing. I want to try to give you the Cliff Notes version of what happened. Remember, I told you they had a preliminary hearing. Well, it was revealed in the hearing that the legal research team working for Harry and others had discussed how to get around the strict court rules that threatened their case. Because under the law, privacy claims have to be brought within 6 years. They're time barred for various reasons. But these emails that were unearthed between 2016 and 2019 reveal that members of the legal team, including a very experienced solicitor and convicted phone hacker Graham Johnson, as well as others, were involved in discussing how to circumvent the rules. Anthony White, the attorney for the Daily Mail, read out one of the emails and then told the court what jumps out in the email is that there is what he would call limited camouflage being put in place, and you only need to camouflage if you've got something to hide. There apparently was a document which shows that in July of 2019, a scheme was hatched to present a misleading picture in relation to limitation. And in the case of Sadie Frost, the actress, there's a document that shows she discussed her potential claim with members of the research team and her solicitors in April of 2016. A big thank you to Roy Lee Sage for finding these examples, because basically what the court heard was Harry cooked up a scheme to do a work around the statute of limitations by funneling stories to byline times. Mr. White, the attorney, also said that Miss Frost was asked for a quote for one of the articles because if it was written, it can be referred to as a basis for claims being written to deter the Mail from arguing limitation. Of course, David Sherborne, who's Harry's attorney, said that Mr. White's characterizations of the emails was quote-unquote dramatic. But let me tell you, the judge, Judge Nicklin, said that the emails tantalizingly suggest that by the stage, there had been amassed pieces of the jigsaw. Yeah, this is getting good. Now, A&L strenuously rejects all of these allegations, and last year, they submitted detailed defenses to the claims to the High Court, showing the legitimate sources for the information in every single article complained about. This case is going to be good. We'll keep an eye on it. Now we have something else we should discuss. Remember Richard Eden? He did an article exposing a sinister establishment plot to undermine the Prince and Princess of Wales and bring back Harry and Meghan. And so accusations were made public last week about a rival conspiracy. The claims emanated from Prince Harry himself, who decided to voice his suspicions that unnamed sources were at work trying to ruin his hopes of a reconciliation with King Charles and eventually the rest of the royal family. Harry was moved to issue a public statement after the Sun newspaper ran that front page report suggesting that the reunion last month had been more formal than expected. Apparently, Harry was left feeling he was being treated as an official visitor rather than family. So in response to the story, Harry's spokesman said the claims were pure invention fed, one can only assume, by sources intent on sabotaging the reconciliation between father and son. But the spokesman did not elaborate on who the sources might have been. They also corrected the Sun's report about the gifts that had been exchanged and, gave that whole thing about, while we would have preferred such details to remain private for the sake of clarity, we can confirm, blah, blah, blah. We covered all that. Well, anyone who read The Spare is all familiar with his contempt for the men in gray suits. He nicknamed the three palace advisors who helped negotiate the Megxit deal Bee, Fly, and Wasp. And Harry's decision to make public his claims of sabotage vividly illustrates the seriousness or, the desperation of his hopes for reconciliation with King Charles. He gave an exclusive interview to an anti-monarchy newspaper, The Guardian, during his visit to Ukraine. The point is, Harry's appetite for a reunion is leading him down a very dangerous path where he's convinced that men in gray suits are creating difficulties for him. But the truth is, there is no evidence of a plot against Harry. The real plot is the one that Richard Eden exposed last week, which involves a relentless public relations campaign waged by the Sussexes aimed at restoring them to the affections of the British public. And it is very worrying that King Charles has been drawn into this, aided by key figures of the establishment behind the scenes. Apparently, Richard Eden has now heard claims that senior government figures are keen for Harry and Meghan to reconcile with the royal family. Many on the left hailed Meghan as a symbol of change in the monarchy, and even after all the trouble that they've caused, want her to come back. And while they may be happy to ignore the hurtful claims she made about Princess Catherine and others, Richard Eden says there should be no reconciliation unless it's accompanied by a genuine apology by the Sussexes for the damage they caused. All right, you guys, you know what to do. Put those comments down, make them good. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is for sale on Amazon, a link to my Amazon wishlist, as well as a physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.